I stand for my people, for our children's future, not for the approval of foreign powers. Africa will protect itself, and we will not ask permission to do so.
In just 48 hours, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a determined leader from Burkina Faso, achieved what years of global cooperation could not. He spearheaded a mission that dismantled the largest synthetic drug network ever uncovered in the Sahel, the vast and often unstable region spanning West Africa. This wasn't merely a drug seizure. It was a powerful statement that Africa could safeguard itself, relying on its own resilience, innovation, and resolve without waiting for approval from world powers. Captain Traoré's story is one of bravery, African ingenuity, and unmatched continental solidarity. It exposes a tangled network of deceit linking the dusty trails of Burkina Faso to the sleek boardrooms of Europe, revealing how systems meant to help Africa have been twisted to harm its people. The operation began in the quiet pre-dawn hours in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's vibrant capital. At exactly 2:12 a.m., an encrypted call broke the stillness at the Sahel Regional Command Terminal, a key center for monitoring regional security. The call came from Gao, a Malian city caught between military control and rebel unrest. The message was urgent and troubling. An unmarked convoy of trucks was moving through the night, bypassing local checkpoints with ease. These vehicles had no license plates, no transponder signals, and no clear markings, yet they moved with a boldness that suggested they felt untouchable, as if shielded by an invisible force. What raised suspicion was the convoy's appearance. The trucks bore logos of European aid groups, including one called Agri Sahel International, tied to defunct medical supply firms once active in Niger. In West Africa, such logos carry weight. Aid convoys, especially those marked with well-known international symbols, are rarely stopped or questioned, presumed to carry essential supplies, food, medicine, or agricultural materials, for communities in need. But Captain Traoré, a keen and fearless commander, sensed something was amiss. The convoy was traveling an old petroleum transport route, officially low risk but long abandoned since French military operations in the region had scaled down. Why would legitimate aid workers choose this obscure path? And why move under cover of darkness when oversight was weakest? Burkina Faso's military had a powerful asset, infrared drones equipped with cutting-edge thermal cameras capable of seeing in the dark. These drones silently tracked the convoy across the rugged Sahel terrain, capturing images that alarmed the intelligence team. The truck's cargo holds were emitting heat, an unnatural, steady glow that didn't match their official manifest, which claimed they carried seed grain and fertilizer for farmers rebuilding after years of conflict. Anyone with basic agricultural knowledge knows seeds and fertilizer don't generate heat like that. This was a glaring warning sign of something far more dangerous. Captain Traoré didn't rush to act. He made a strategic choice that showcased his tactical brilliance. He ordered his team to keep the convoy under constant drone surveillance but to wait until it crossed into Burkina Faso's territory before intervening. This was a risky move. If the trucks escaped or the operation failed, it could embarrass Burkina Faso internationally and give foreign powers a reason to criticize or meddle. But Traoré trusted his team's skills and the technology they'd developed. For 14 hours, they monitored the convoy's southward journey, meticulously gathering data on its route, speed, and stops. Using advanced tracking systems, they built a detailed picture of the convoy's movements, preparing for the perfect moment to act. At 6:03 a.m., the lead truck crossed the Burkina Faso border, entering the nation's sovereign territory, known as the Burkina Faso Line. That was when Captain Traoré issued a command that reverberated across 2 continents. He ordered a 6-hour lockdown of Burkina Faso's entire northern border. No one, civilians, aid workers, or commercial vehicles, could cross. Every entry point, from small dirt tracks used by local traders to major international routes relied on by aid organizations, was sealed shut. The order was relayed to 12 military outposts via 11 satellite links, ensuring airtight enforcement. This was a historic moment for West Africa. For the first time, an African nation had closed a multinational corridor without seeking permission from Western governments or global bodies. The reaction was immediate and fierce. French security advisors demanded explanations for the unprecedented lockdown. EU development officials sent encrypted messages urging restraint. UN field monitors sought answers from Burkina Faso's leadership. Every call went unanswered. Captain Traoré was sending an unmistakable message: this was Burkina Faso's land, and he was in control. His defiance challenged decades of expectations that African nations must follow rules set by powerful Western institutions, rules that often prioritized diplomatic ease over African safety. Traore's refusal to respond was a bold rejection of that system. Consider the courage of his actions. Burkina Faso, a small nation often overlooked globally, has a modest economy and military compared to world powers. Yet here was a young African leader from one of the continent's smaller countries standing up to some of the world's most influential institutions, declaring, "Not today, not on my land." For years, African nations had been pressured to allow aid convoys, especially those with European or UN logos, to move freely without scrutiny. This system enabled dangerous goods to slip through under the guise of humanitarian aid. Traore's decision to break this pattern was a pivotal moment, inspiring people across Africa and beyond. What followed was a striking display of Africa's growing technological prowess. This operation wasn't run from a European or American command center. It was led entirely by Africans using homegrown technology. In the months prior, Captain Traore had collaborated with local engineers and digital forensics experts from Ghana to overhaul Burkina Faso's defense systems. They developed AI pathing algorithms to track the convoy's route, terrain adaptive heat maps to navigate the Sahel's rugged landscape, and digital reconstruction tools to analyze the truck's movements. This wasn't foreign equipment or expertise, it was African innovation, built and operated by African hands to solve an African problem. In just 48 hours, Traore's team digitally mapped the convoy's entire journey from Mali to Burkina Faso. The AI system compared the route to historical data on commercial and aid shipments across the Sahel, revealing a disturbing pattern. 3 previous convoys had followed nearly identical paths over the past year, matching 89% of the current route. None had proper documentation, and none had been inspected. They had slipped through the Sahel, disappearing without a trace. This raised a haunting question: how many dangerous shipments had crossed Africa's borders while the world claimed the continent lacked the ability to monitor its own lands? This wasn't a mere oversight, it was a betrayal. For years, African nations were told they lacked the resources or expertise to oversee their borders. International agreements, often signed under pressure from Western governments, created blind spots where aid cargo moved unchecked, justified as necessary for humanitarian efficiency. But these blind spots left Africa vulnerable to exploitation. How many deadly substances had slipped through, harming African communities while the world turned away? The answer was both heartbreaking and infuriating, fueling Captain Traore's determination to act decisively. The response team was swift, skilled, and entirely local, 48 soldiers from Burkina Faso's National Countering Unit, trained for complex operations, joined by 4 Interpol coordinators to ensure global standards, and a 3-person analytics team from Africa's Cyber Risk Bureau processing data in real time. This wasn't a sprawling foreign-led mission, it was a precise, African-led operation by people who knew their land and mission better than anyone. At 7:46 p.m., near Gorom, a fixed-wing drone scanned the convoy again. Thermal cameras detected something unmistakable: containers labeled as agricultural lime were emitting heat no farming material could produce. The team moved with precision, using cryocutters to open sealed containers without damage. What they found confirmed Traore's suspicions and stunned even veteran officers: 10 tons of pure methamphetamine, crystal slabs worth nearly $90 million on European streets. As the team secured the drugs, they noticed something chilling. 2 high-tech drones circled above, their advanced designs and movements betraying their origin. These weren't off-the-shelf devices but sophisticated reconnaissance drones, likely used by European defense contractors. Someone with significant resources was watching, possibly protecting the convoy or ensuring its success. This raised disturbing questions: who was behind these drones? Were they ensuring the drugs reached their destination? The discovery highlighted the conspiracy's scale and urgency. Burkina Faso's forensic division, working with Ghanaian tech experts, analyzed the evidence meticulously. QR codes on the drug containers matched uninspected cargo shipped through Lagos, Nigeria, and Cotonou, Benin, in 2023, falsely labeled as research compounds for European labs. The paperwork, fast-tracked under a post-conflict agro-restoration program, was a lie. No Sahel ministry had approved it. The trail led to a private audit firm in Antwerp, Belgium, hidden behind a web of fake logistics companies. At the heart was Agri Development West Africa, a supposed European NGO focused on post-conflict agriculture. Its name appeared on packaging and documents, but Traore's cybersecurity team found it was a shell, its Luxembourg office empty, its website masked, and its funding tied to a pharmaceutical conglomerate with a history of violating export controls. This wasn't just crime, it was systematic exploitation of Africa's trust in aid systems. Mechanisms meant to deliver food, medicine, and hope had been corrupted to smuggle poison into African communities. The methamphetamine wasn't just a drug, it was a weapon to destabilize societies and profit from suffering. For years, African nations were told to trust these systems, accepting shipments without question. Traoré's operation exposed the bitter truth: those systems were turned against Africa, at a steep cost. Captain Traoré didn't stop at seizing the drugs. He made a bold move that shook the international community. He announced all evidence would be public, with no secret deals or negotiations with foreign powers. Within hours, France's Ministry of Foreign Affairs requested a private meeting, and an EU policy group expressed regret over a breach of procedural trust. Traoré stood firm, sharing evidence through open diplomatic channels. Independent fact-checking platforms in Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa verified the documents, and the West African Union for Security and Transparency endorsed his transparency. This wasn't just Burkina Faso acting alone, it was Africa uniting to demand accountability. Western media quickly tried to spin the narrative, protecting powerful interests. Headlines called it, "Burkina Faso detains EU relief shipment," or "Ouagadougou standoff." The BBC labeled the cargo, medical-grade biological material, avoiding the word, drugs. But Africa didn't stay silent. Ghana's president declared Burkina Faso's right to inspect cargo to protect its people. Mali's leaders called Traoré a necessary flame against hypocrisy. Nigeria, Algeria, and Chad condemned multinational groups hiding behind goodwill to harm Africa, with the latter two sending legal teams to investigate past shipments. The African Union formed a working group to strengthen customs security, with South Africa offering anti-smuggling AI and Sierra Leone proposing a transparent ledger for aid shipments. The morning after the media's spin, Burkina Faso announced Operation Sahara Sands, Clean Corridor, a commitment to permanent change. 11 Sahel border points would get high-resolution scanning stations to inspect all cargo, regardless of origin or logo. Interpol signed a 5-year data-sharing agreement, integrating West African aid routes into global surveillance. Nigeria, Chad, and Algeria proposed Africanet Clean Transit, a continent-wide system to synchronize customs data and GPS tracking, a digital firewall against exploitation. For years, inspection exemptions justified as humanitarian efficiency left Africa vulnerable. The seized methamphetamine, falsely labeled as anti-pest liquid, had purity levels exceeding European standards. How many similar shipments had slipped through, poisoning communities? This story is about people: the grandmother in Gao, Mali, burying her grandson due to drugs flooding her streets, the young man in Niamey, Niger, watching his community crumble as unchecked aid trucks rolled through. Captain Traoré understood their pain. "We don't just need freedom," he said. "We need clean space for our children to breathe." His actions sparked lasting change. Customs officers now receive tactical training to spot smuggling. Agricultural experts verify shipment claims, and labs in Gorom and Ouagadougou test substances in 90 minutes, sharing results with African partners. A Djibouti convoy was recently stopped, revealing dangerously pure synthetic compounds mislabeled as reforestation materials, a pattern of exploitation Traoré's operation exposed. The impact reached beyond Burkina Faso. ECOWAS allocated unprecedented funding for border security, with Mauritania offering drone logistics, Benin providing airspace, and Niger repurposing old French satellite uplinks. This was Africa uniting, sharing resources to protect its people. Nations once pitted against each other for aid now collaborated, sharing technology and a common goal. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's 48-hour operation was a turning point. It showed Africa could protect itself with its own technology, expertise, and courage, not foreign advisors or command centers. "I don't care what they call me," Traoré said. "I care that our children live long enough to be called anything." His words inspired a new generation to demand better. Operation Sahara Sands is now debated in parliaments, analyzed in embassies, and shared by young Africans from Lagos to Nairobi. They're asking about sovereignty, dignity, and the right to control what enters their homeland. This isn't the end of the fight against exploitation, but it's a new beginning. Africa is awake, asserting its right to protect its people, borders, and future. Captain Traoré, a child of Africa, stood where others hesitated, lighting a flare for a continent ready to lead. Burkina Faso, once underestimated, now stands at the center, showing what's possible when African leaders prioritize their people's safety and dignity. This is Africa's detox from decades of exploitation, a moment to celebrate and a call to action. If you believe in a stronger, united Africa, share this story. talk about it, debate it, and demand more leaders like Traore.